Guys, I'm gonna need your full attention for this one, because Trackmania is about to receive its biggest content update of all time. Now, they were kind of foreshadowing that the winter update would be a big one, but nobody expected 6 news articles worth of content to drop on the Trackmania homepage. There is so much new stuff. Some of it relates to Trackmania Esports, but most of it actually relates to the regular gameplay experience. There's a new Cup of the Week, there's 4 new environments, there's something called the Weekly Grand and an endurance race every week, tons of new events, new skins as well, and in this video I'm gonna try to go through everything in a comprehensive manner so you guys know what's going on. If you're watching this video as it releases, I am going to be streaming as the update drops live tomorrow, January 27th at about 3 p.m. CET. So do click the link in the description or just check the YouTube channel to see if I'm live if you want to see it in action. But I think we'll start by watching the trailer and seeing sort of the cinematic shots of what Trackmania is going to look like from now on. Let's get into it. This is the trailer for the new campaign. You can see some brand new aesthetics, guys. We're no longer just in the stadium, we're out in the Grand Canyon, we're out in some valleys, some frozen landscape, and a bright tropical lagoon. These environments might be familiar to you if you're a longtime Trackmania player, because they have been featured in older games like Trackmania Canyon, Trackmania Lagoon, and Trackmania Valley. But before you get your hopes up, if you're an old player, I do have to tell you that Trackmania have not added the cars from these games yet. Maybe they will in the future, since they have the landscapes already, but no new cars have been added in this update, though we do get to drive in the vibrant and fun aesthetics. Also here, the text on the screen, we have the Weekly Grand Track. You can see a bunch of cars on the racetrack and not a lot of obstacles, and that is, I think, by design. They wanted to have more open tracks for that, and we will read all the details about it a bit later. Also, you can see here the Cup of the Week on campaign tracks, so I'm assuming what we're seeing here is a campaign track. But it gets very exciting in a second because some of the campaign tracks are a bit different from the rest. You have the normal campaign tracks, I believe, from the first white map till the last red map, the first 20 tracks. And then the black tracks are special esport tracks. If we pause, everybody, right here, I saw this and it invoked a memory from my brain from a long time ago. These boosters with this checkpoint and the road following thereafter is an old Trackmania Esport part of a map called Bicycle, and it is now a black track in the campaign with this cool Chinese scenery with the dragon and everything. And this is not the only one, because they also soon feature another black track, which is Half Pipe. This is also an old esport track from 2021, but with French scenery. We got the Louvre, we got the Eiffel Tower, and then we have what seems to be another esport track here with really Brazilian samba aesthetics. You even had like a cool football kick happening over here. I like the scenery a lot, but what I think this signifies, guys, is a huge change in how Trackmania Esports is going to take place. Because in the past, esports and just regular campaigns used to be 2 entirely different worlds. But now Nadeo wants to combine them. It's just easier for the viewers, I think, when it's tracks they're familiar with. You wouldn't have a reason otherwise to get familiar with these tracks, but they're in the campaigns, and we're all author metal addicts. So, you know, I think this is an interesting move. The tracks do have to be rather difficult for the pros to be able to distinguish themselves. Like, if the tracks are simple, they'll be 1/100th apart. So we are hoping these tracks are difficult, but the aesthetics are really cool. Anyway, let's get into all the new game modes one by one. Starting with the game modes, I believe the biggest one is the Cup of the Week, but there are 2 new weekly cups to play. So Cup of the Week is playable every Saturday at 5 p.m. Central European Time. You play knockout mode on blue, red, and black tracks from the campaign. What this is essentially Cup of the Day, but on campaign tracks. And you're only playing the black tracks if you're at the elite level, if you're trying to compete for esports. They otherwise might be too hard, and so they're gonna pick blue and red tracks for the majority of the player base. The Cup of the Week says it's part of the Elite Cup. The Elite Cup is essentially just the qualifier to Esports World Cup and Esports Nations Cup. We're gonna take a look at that a bit later. but we can first take a look at the details of Cup of the Week. So for most players, Cup of the Week will just follow the same knockout rules as Cup of the Day. From 64 to 17, it's 4 KO, then it's 2, then it's 1. But you get to play on familiar tracks, so if you grind a lot, you'll have an advantage. I think that's nice. Whereas in the Elite Cup, the Cup of the Week, but on the black tracks, there are 10 in total, and you try to rack up as many points as you can. The sum of your top 5 results will count for the Elite Cup ranking, and the top 8 players qualify for the Esports World Cup, whereas 16 players, 1 per nation, qualify for the Esports Nations Cup. There's no registration required, competition servers are open to everyone, and it's not mandatory to play all 10. This closes on May 31st. This, guys, already starts on Valentine's Day, which I thought was a very funny choice to start the Esport League on Valentine's Day. They're just guessing people don't have that day busy, huh? But anyway, I mean, this is pretty crazy. The Esports World Cup, the biggest Trackmania tournament prize pool ever, like the qualifier spots are given out in knockout mode, which is a huge advantage for some players like Scrappy and Grenady, who have tons of Cup of the Day wins, right? This is completely different to what Carl Jr. typically practices, what Pac typically practices, and the typical top esport performers are going to have to adapt to this as well. So that is pretty much everything we know about Cup of the Week at the moment. It runs on Saturdays at 5 PM Central European Time, and you do need club access to play them. But if you don't have it, perhaps just another reason to get club access now. Seems really cool. I'll be streaming them as soon as they start, and of course posting videos about them. The other new game mode that they dropped is the weekly Grand Enduro. This runs on Sundays at 4 PM Central European Time. The weekly Grand Enduro online races take place then. They're accessible for free, these ones, from the arcade channel. You will experience a new endurance challenge where you'll have to race 60 laps on the current weekly Grand track after a short qualification. Every 5 laps, you earn Prestige Progression. So 60 laps is of course a reference to EO5, where each lap takes a minute and you drive for 60 laps. But that is quite a lot. And the way they're doing this is that the race takes place on Sunday at 4 PM, and then 2 hours later at 6 PM, the next weekly Grand Track drops, you have 1 week to train it, and then the race takes place at 4 PM again. And those were the ones we saw in the trailer that look rather simple. But if you're driving for an hour, you honestly don't want a lot of pillars in the road or plastic bounces, or you just want to drive. And 1 hour of precision, it'll actually be really cool to try to compete in those. So I'm excited to try this. And then they say here, push the limits on black tracks. From now on, the black tracks from the official seasonal campaigns will serve as competitive tracks for EWC and ENC qualifications and competitions. This direct path will allow regular players to progress more easily and aim for top-level play across both PC and console platforms. Really just making esports more accessible, and it ties everything together, and I think that is the way to go. We've had so many seasons where esports and regular Trackmania is just 2 separate worlds that don't interact. Like Carl Jr. never plays the regular campaign, and a regular campaign player never touches the esport tracks because they're just too different. But here they're trying to bridge the gap and make it more easy to compete against the best players and also try to become one of the best players. I also really like the aesthetics of these tracks, so we're just gonna have to see how this works, but perhaps a choice that the pros have been waiting for a long time and something that was necessary. Quick little side note here is that these are the prestige skins. I think also showing the esport direction that they are taking, because these look a lot more professional. They look a lot more like real racing cars than the sort of arcadey designs of the previous prestige skins. So, you know, people might not care too much for the prestige skins, but I think they are sort of signalizing where the game is going now. So that is pretty much all the news on what will change for the regular Trackmania player. You'll now have the weekly shorts, the Cup of the Day, Cup of the Week, the weekly Grand, and the Enduro race every week to play in new environments as well, new visuals. I think all of that is really cool. And you also have esport tracks in the campaign, so you can actually try to compete against Carl Jr. if you've ever wanted. For the pro players, the esports circuit in 2026 is ramping up. 20 years after the release of Trackmania Nations ESWC and the first Trackmania World Cup in Paris, we are proud to welcome 2 new major milestones in Trackmania esport history: the Esports World Cup and the Esport Nations Cup. And for the first time in Trackmania history, players can train and qualify for both major tournaments directly in-game through the weekly cup that we mentioned. So you have the Esports World Cup $500,000 prize pool in August, but then later in the year, Trackmania is now also part of the Esport Nations Cup, where players compete for a share of $250,000 USD prize pool. Those prize pools are pretty crazy and unlike anything we've seen in Trackmania before, but considering cups used to be hosted in Paris and now they're hosted in Riyadh, we'll really just have to see if that is a good direction for Trackmania or not. At the bottom of this news article, the devs write that in 2026, the World Tour will take a break, so that has been the main competitive league, letting us focus on EWC and ENC, while continuing to support players and organizers in running their events. From the fabulous Trackmania games to other initiatives, we're open to supporting the best ideas, and depending on the project, we'll be able to provide financial support and amplify the communication in-game and on Trackmania socials. So this right here is really quite cool because Trackmania has been a broke game for as long as I can remember, guys, and it has been shrinking. There's this picture of the Trackmania devs on New Year 2020 and now New Year 2026, and the team has shrunk considerably. Not just that, but if you've ever looked at the Ubisoft stock charts, I have, they can look quite dizzying as the company has lost 94% of its value over the last 5 years, with some games flopping after one another, and as Trackmania players, we've been quite scared for the game's future. It has seemed like Trackmania is a passenger on a sinking ship, the sinking ship being Ubisoft, but being part of these cups, although you can argue back and forth about how it's this and that, seems like at least it will provide some stability for the game, and that's at least something I will hope for, that the lights are on and that the game is available for a long time in the future, and maybe even Nadeo can start to provide actual financial support to tournaments themselves and provide a good ecosystem for the players. You know, I can already tell you guys that big teams are joining Trackmania because of these announcements, and contracts for players are better than they ever have been. I used to run Jetlag Racing with Brennan Mudda, who went all the way to second place World Cup last year, and though I'd love to continue the product this year, I sadly got outbid by a lot. All the top players are likely going to get contracts with these big teams and have sustainable income where they can pursue Trackmania full time without any other obligations, and it is so deserved in my opinion for how many hours these guys have put in when the game was really small, that they now finally get to reap the rewards of that. So I'm really proud of Brennan Mudda and all the other pro players in the game, and very happy for their opportunities. So I can't wait to see if that's going to raise the level of the game even higher or what's going to happen, but we'll see if it ends up being for the better of the game or not. So everybody, that is the short of it on the new update. Trackmania has joined 2 big esport leagues and hopefully now has a sustainable esport scene for a long time. In-game, you can find a new endurance track every Sunday at 6 PM Central European Time and play an endurance race on that the next Sunday again at 4 PM Central European Time. You can also every Saturday at 5 PM play the Cup of the Week, gain trophies, and also maybe a qualifying ticket to the said esport tournaments. And then, as usual, weekly shorts will still be happening every Sunday at 6, Cup of the Day every day at 7, and all the other community cups. There is so much content in Trackmania. It is a great time to be a Trackmania player, and I am so excited to check out the new campaign tomorrow at 5 PM Central European Time. So if you're watching this as it comes out, do check out the campaign stream and we can talk all about everything in the update there, and I'll see you guys in the next couple of videos. Mostly about the new update and the new content. So let's go, Trackmania in 2026. I think this is the year, guys. I really think so. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Bye-bye, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.